In the following video, we're going to be using ChatGPT to have a conversation about architecture, and not architecture in building a building, but the etymology of architecture. We're going to be talking about the etymology of different words and concepts as it pertains to love, as well as kind of the Darwinism of concepts as suggested by Does Writing Have a Future? And then from there, we are going to use GPT to come up with a etymology creator for prompts. So it's going to be like prompt meta. And then we are going to have it generate a Mermaid.js visual chart. So stick around. And if you want to get or see this in text or copy paste it or whatever, you can go to bramadams.dev in the description below and see the companion post in the description. Okay, have a good day. Okay, in this episode of Bram is Never Going to Finish This Book, we are talking about the book Does Writing Have a Future? And we have another quote. This one is about love evolving through time the same way that a fish skills might evolve into the mammalian ear, right? Where you can see remnants of things from the past, appendages from creatures in the past that have continued to exist into extant creatures. Particularly, this is about the kind of idea of models of love, right? Where it's just kind of like, oh, you watch a Hollywood love movie fanfic between Ryan Reynolds and whoever Ryan Reynolds is dating, or Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. And you'll probably have noticed that there's a lot of similarities, right? You'll say like, okay, well, you know that they're going to fall in love, you know that they're going to break up like halfway through the movie, and there's going to be a big fight, and they're going to get back together, and the music's going to start playing. It'll be like Sleepless in Seattle, and Meg Ryan and the Tom Hanks will just walk off into the middle of nowhere with the boy trailing behind them in the Empire State Building, and the movie just cuts out, right? But this romantic poetry, right, this idea of kind of like where does romance come from, is thousands of years old, right? We have Christian love models, and behind Christian love models, we have Jewish and Greek love models, and then you can keep going and going and going until you lose their roots in prehistory, specifically for kind of like Western cultures, right? So within this genealogical trees, you can see Plato, you can see Nietzsche or Spinoza, which is kind of like an aesthetic Darwinism, is basically what Flusser is arguing. So that our experience of love is evolved, it's nuanced, right? It takes all of these different components of love that have been kind of tossed about for the past millennia or 2 or 3 or 4 and combines it into our currently nuanced version of love, because we have all of that data to go off of. We have all of that history to refer back to, right? History is written down so we can kind of read how other people have experienced love in the past and use it to inform our version of love as well. So he says here, what we perceive to be true is the truest of all. And I guess that the way that I see that is, again, it's just kind of like evolutionarily true, right? Where it's I think that it would, even if it was related to Darwin's kind of natural selection, our version of love might not work 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece, because we have a very different society with very different environments and very different rules. But I think the overall idea holds, of just kind of like, it's the most nuanced because it's the youngest and has learned from all of the other ones. So anyway, by the end of this video, we're going to try and use ChatGPT to learn about the history of languages, poetry, and create an etymology program. So we want like a program that basically you can type in a word and find the etymology of it using ChatGPT. So let's say that like, where do we start with this? We can either say like, what is the etymology of this word? So let's just say, come up. I think because we actually want to use ChatGPT for this program, weirdly enough. So we're going to ask it to come up with its own prompts. So come up with a list of prompts that would allow a user to hit one button and find the etymology of a word returned in year, or maybe like era, language, interesting historical fact, So let's see what GPT comes up with, and then I'll think if I could have done better. Okay, so it says, what is the origin of insert word and what era was it first used? Which language did insert word originate from and what does it mean in that language? Can you provide an interesting historical fact about the usage of insert word throughout history? In which culture or society was insert word commonly used and how has its meaning evolved over time? And what are some related words and where do they come from? So let's choose a word and actually run these. So let's say that we grab this. Okay, so for this is a great part about GPT is that we don't actually need to change anything. So we can just say for insert word sub in with the word. What would be an interesting word to learn about? Architecture. Architecture. Let's see what it does. Okay, so now it's just subbed in. Okay, yeah. It's fine. Actually, what I can do here is I can just grab these. GPT did come up with that, which is what I wanted. I said for insert word, sub in the word architecture. I did say that. But let's see what happens if I actually say, okay, so architecture comes from the Greek word architekon. Oh, well, let's just let it finish. So architecture comes from the Greek word architekon, which means the chief builder in the mid 16th century for architecture, I guess. The Greek language, archi, which is chief, and then tekton, which is builder or carpenter. An interesting historical fact is that in civilizations as Egypt, Greece, and Rome, these cultures develop unique architectural styles that are still admired for their complexity and beauty. Well, I mean that's a gimme. Architecture has commonly been used throughout many cultures since ancient times. Its meaning has evolved to landscape architecture, interior design, and more. Some related works to architecture include the building architrave, which is the beam that rests on the top of columns. That's interesting. Archway, a passageway. These words all have Latin and Greek languages like architecture stuff does. Okay. Can you draw a Mermaid.js chart that uses the etymology as well as the fun facts? Enter. So it says that it doesn't have the ability. Okay, so like we don't need to say draw it. Maybe let's change it to write. Write Mermaid.js write 111. Okay, let's see how it does. Oh, it froze. Oh no, there it goes. So sometimes it works and other times it does not. So let's try Mermaid.js. Is that right? Mermaid? Error parsing mermaid program diagram. So it does, that did work, but I have to do this. So I don't. Let's do chief leader. Let's see how this works. Maybe it's the hash or the thing that doesn't like backslash. No. What is this? So architecture, Greek architekon. Let's just get rid of the bottom part real quick and see how that does for a second. Sometimes that works just to see where it breaks. Okay, so that did work. We have architecture, architekon, mid 16th century origin, architectural styles. Unfortunately, the rest of it breaks for some reason. I think that maybe this shouldn't be in quotes. Okay, no, it doesn't like, it's the parentheses it doesn't like. Yeah, there we go. So we have architecture, which is the Greek architecton, which is the Archie, which is the chief leader, and Tecton, which is the carpenter. I just stabbed myself in the eye. Comes from mid 16th century origin. Ancient civilizations used unique architectural styles. And from this, we have Egyptian pyramids, Greek temples, and Roman aqueducts. And then we have encompasses building design, urban planning, landscape architecture, interior design, etc. So this went really well. Obviously, we didn't have to do that much, right? And we got this really beautiful Mermaid.js chart for architecture, as well as kind of like talking about the history of architecture, which now I know means chief builder, which I guess makes sense. And, with archway and architrave is a word that I'm going to add to my vocabulary if I can.